I think all of us can remember the night that Jack Eichel was officially traded to the Vegas Golden Knights. Believe it or not, it's been one whole calendar year since this trade went down, and it's undeniably one of the most mystifying, perplexing, and craziest blockbuster trades I have ever seen. For those who, one, somehow did not realize that Eichel was traded, or two, don't remember the details of the trade, let's just look into it again. I'll explain the conditions in just a second, but we had the Golden Knights getting forward Jack Eichel and a 2023 conditional third round pick in exchange for forwards Peyton Krebs and Alex Tuch, along with a conditional 2022 first round pick and a conditional 2023 second round pick. Now, the condition for the third round pick going to Vegas, thanks to Cap Friendly, was that if Vegas' first round pick in the 2022 draft is a top 10 pick, then Buffalo will transfer the 2024 third round pick instead. And then as you guys can see under result, what actually happened was that Vegas' 2022 first round pick was not in the top 10, hence they received Buffalo's 2023 third round pick. For the first round pick going to Buffalo, the condition was that if the pick is in the top 10, Vegas will instead transfer the 2023 first round pick to Buffalo. The result? Well, Vegas' selection is not in the top 10, so Buffalo will receive the 2022 first round pick. There, they got the 16th overall pick and selected Noah Östlund, a young prospect playing in Sweden right now. And lastly, we had the condition for the second round pick going to Buffalo, where if Vegas' first round pick in the 2022 draft is a top 10 pick, then Vegas will essentially transfer the 2024 second round pick instead. But again, since Vegas' first round pick was not a top 10 pick, Buffalo received the 2023 second round pick. If you guys are still confused with all the picks and numbers and all that stuff, just look it up on Cap Friendly. It's all there for you. But either way, yeah, this definitely was a wild night and honestly an unexpected one because a lot of people were thinking that Eichel was going to go to different teams. I don't think that many people would have had Vegas as their number one team on the Eichel, I guess, Eichel list or Eichel race, whatever you want to call it. There were teams like the Rangers, there were teams like the Wild, the Flames. The Flames were a huge team in for him. I mean, there was no team bigger than the Flames going in for this guy. They were willing to give up Matthew Tkachuk for Eichel or somewhere along those lines. And obviously that didn't happen because we had Eichel going to Vegas. But either way, regardless, this trade, despite it being a year since it happened, it's still a complex trade to talk about. Almost no logical conclusion can be made so far about who won this trade because we have Eichel reviving his career right now in Vegas. The Sabres are above 500. They are 7-4 right now. They are just cruising their way into potential playoff contention. It looks to me like both teams are actually happy with what they have so far. Both teams have sort of won this trade, which makes it a really difficult one to break down. Even on that day in 2021 itself, I would assume that people would know that this was a trade that wasn't going to be small. The Sabres would be getting a haul of assets while the Knights would pretty much just be getting Eichel. However, getting Eichel is no joke. The trade really took people to two conclusions. The first one being that, some people were saying, you're getting the guy drafted right behind Connor McDavid, the guy who, when healthy, is above a point per game rate. Imagine him with Mark Stone. That's just an unbelievable top line right there when you have two superstars. But there were also thoughts like, well, this guy has a neck injury. He needed surgery, which he didn't get thanks to the Sabres. That will certainly derail his time, so maybe Buffalo has already gotten the lead here. But one thing that all of us hockey fans had to agree on was that this trade was just layered. It was like an onion, like Shrek would say. It was just layers and layers and layers to be uncovered to finally see who was really winning this trade after all. But in my opinion, before the start of the season, the Sabres were easily winning this trade, hands down. Alex Tuch put up 38 points in 50 games after the trade for the remainder of that season. We have Peyton Krebs putting up 22 points as a really, really young player. These guys were a main reason why Sabres fans had hope for a potential playoff push next year. Plus, you consider the fact that Eichel wasn't even playing in Vegas right after the trade, that also helps. He was getting the neck surgery he needed, and he would play his first game with the Golden Knights on February 16, 2022 versus the Colorado Avalanche. However, this unfortunately did not help Vegas considering he put up 25 points in the remaining 34 games of the season, and Vegas would miss the playoffs for the first time in franchise history. What's even worse for Eichel was his return to Buffalo, where he was greeted with half cheers and half boos, which was pretty interesting to see. It kind of reminded me of John Tavares' return to Long Island, but at least not as bad. I mean, I don't think anyone's homecoming was as brutal as JT's, but similar to how the Isles beat Toronto in John Tavares' homecoming, the Sabres beat the Knights in Eichel's homecoming, which certainly got them going. They were just ecstatic. The whole stadium was full. I mean, I think it was full capacity actually that night, but I'm not too sure. But that was the last of the 2021-22 season pertaining to either Eichel or the Sabres, as both didn't make the playoffs, but here we are in the 22-23 season and things have changed quite a bit. The Knights have certainly turned things around with Bruce Cassidy as the head honcho, and they are doing wonderful, especially Eichel. As I mentioned earlier, it seems like Eichel has become his old self where he was notching high numbers, as right now Vegas is 10-2 and a healthy Jack Eichel leads the team in points with 13. Vegas is starting to surge back into the who won the trade debate as they finally have the number one center cemented and in his prime, as Eichel is just 26 years old. He becomes a giant improvement over William Karlsson for that number one spot at center, but here we are on the anniversary of the trade, so let's just get a little bit deeper into how each team has really done or is doing since arguably one of the biggest in-season trades ever. Before the trade actually happened, we had Eichel who seriously was just sick and tired of the Sabres' lack of success. He was disgruntled, he hadn't made the playoffs ever, not even during the 2020 bubble playoffs where young rebuilding teams were actually making, like the Canadiens and the Rangers, and like even the Coyotes made it for all teams crying out loud. Vegas was already a team super interested in his services and were seriously being noted as a top 3 destination for him, despite them being against the wall in terms of salary. The team was almost using the entire salary cap with several long-term contracts in guys like Stone, William Karlsson, Alex Pietrangelo, Zach Whitecloud, and Nick Roy, so that made fans question if Vegas was a serious place for Eichel to go. However, no fan should ever underestimate the intelligence of Bill Foley, the owner, and Kelly McCrimmon, the general manager. Somehow, despite having $0 in their pockets in terms of salary cap, they managed to get Eichel while giving a fair share back to Buffalo. And yeah, even though they're placing some guys on LTIR, even Eichel himself at one point, they're still surviving with him healthy and are probably going to make the postseason, which is what Vegas wants. But the fans were obviously not happy. When a team receives a superstar talent that's not in free agency, they have a tendency to get upset with what they lost, and for a fair reason. Fans were not pleased with Alex Tuch departing because, not gonna lie, for any team that would pretty much sting, and losing Krebs was also huge because they basically gave away a really talented and potential young forward for a more talented veteran in Eichel, but you're still losing a potential forward who can be a huge part of your team in the future, so again, it still hurts. And then not to mention how Eichel's contract of $10.5 million posed serious threats to Vegas' cap space, especially if he didn't perform to that level, which he hasn't just yet. And then also consider the fact how the Knights gave up so many assets for a dude who wasn't even ready for 3 more months and had no guarantees that he would come back to the NHL ready to play at the same levels he did in Buffalo. I mean, the Knights posed a serious risk on themselves. But in the end, we all saw how great he was when he really hit the ice. Even if it didn't amaze and shock the eyes of other NHL fans or whatnot, he still played really well. He's not very much to blame for any of the team's downfalls, even though the team went 4-9-1 when he arrived. I still feel like he was good with Vegas as soon as he switched teams. I mean, just look at his stat line. Getting 25 points in 34 games is absolutely great, and that's great production despite it being a dip for him, and he's just going to find his ways around in Vegas, in my opinion. The old Jack Eichel is basically returning, which is, again, great for Vegas. He's leading the team in points right now. He's already known how to be a creative playmaker and a guy with elite vision and high hockey intellect. You take away that neck injury and the situation from Buffalo, and man, this dude drafted behind Connor McDavid is arguably a top 10 center in the NHL. You can maybe go in Vegas' favor with the fact that this guy is going to be a top player in the league very, very soon. And now that we moved on from Vegas, we have the Sabres, and well, they got quite the load to be fair. Their end of the trade had massive ties to building the future of the team, so Sabres fans watching this video, just be aware that you're most likely not going to see an instant growth in guys like Krebs or guys like Oshland just yet, and probably whoever they draft with that second-round pick next year. But the good news is that this team has finally got rid of Eichel. They got rid of their problems. They don't have a toxic, environment anymore. They had made actual additions with subtractions, as I like to say it. We also have not discussed Alex Tuch, who undeniably was the biggest part of this trade. The dude who had 38 points, in which 12 were goals last year, was not only outproducing Jack Eichel, but he also played more games than him. Best part is that he remains signed to a long-term deal, which should certainly help the Sabres in the long run, considering he's been paid for more than half the amount that Eichel is getting. And best of all, he's happy there. Can you believe it? Someone being happy in Buffalo. He actually wants to be there and play for the Sabres because that's the team he grew up watching, as he's a Buffalo native himself. And not gonna lie, Tuch has been red hot so far. He has 11 points in 11 games, but at some points, I would pretty much favor Tuch over Eichel, considering their contracts, considering what's been going on. All of that into account, I would have Tuch over Eichel as of right this second. In the future, things could change. Then we talk about Krebs for a second, because this guy too has gotten a lot of accolades from certain players and coaches, which is something that Sabres fans would love to hear. We heard Don Granato saying that this is a guy who's a versatile forward who can play wing and center, a kid who's young and now has a full-time role in the Sabres team despite him not producing so much in terms of points. He was pretty much just bouncing around the AHL last year a bit, but now that he's fully in the NHL, we should see big things coming from him. And the last guy I wanted to talk about was Oshland because, this guy was drafted by Buffalo last year, but he is promising. He's not even 19 yet. He turns 19 in March, and this dude in Sweden, getting set to become a future part of the Sabres prospect pool, is currently the assist leader on, I don't even know how to pronounce this, oh boy, Djurgården's IF club that features players like longtime NHLer Marcus Kruger. Pretty much also said in his NHL draft profile that he boasts elite speed and exceptional playmaking skills, meaning that he's a player for Sabres fans to keep their eye on. Fair to say, both organizations seem to be pretty content with their haul at the moment. Regardless of what level Eichel can ultimately get to, the situation in Buffalo was pretty much untenable and a change of scenery was desperately needed. So for the Sabres, in that kind of retrospect, I guess, recouping a productive forward in Alex Tuch on a good contract is great. They have two developing prospects at different stages in Peyton Krebs and Noah Oshland. Also great. And then you have another pick coming in, basically. You have lots of stuff coming in. It's like a gift that keeps on giving, right? So, the Sabres and Kevin Adams, they have a lot to kind of delve into, I guess. And then for the Golden Knights, if Eichel continues to anchor what has been a dominant Vegas team to date, they're not going to regret this trade whatsoever. They will be fine giving up Tuch and Krebs and a first-round pick and a second-round pick if Eichel continues going the way he is. I think this is a win-win trade, in my opinion. It's good to recap the 1-year anniversary of this trade that went down. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about this trade, guys. Otherwise, thank you guys for tuning in and have a wonderful day.